Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings, and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds TV, a Sacramento Kings YouTube channel by fans for fans.
That's right. This is the Royal Rebounds Podcast with Calvin and Barry. We are back breaking down a Kings win for a change over the Washington Wizards. We'll also talk Davion Mitchell. Harrison Barnes is back. It's Kings, so we'll talk more
and
trades.
A new coach tonight.
New coach tonight. There's a lot to dive into. Let's get to it with our nightcap.
We're here, we're drinking beer, and we're talking about your Sacramento Kings. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. This is your Kings nightcap. Cal, what are we drinking tonight?
We are drinking the Lagunitas IPA, very classic California West Coast IPA, one of our favorites. And I am happy to be drinking once again. I'm back, baby.
We got a Christmas party to go to after this, so we're just warming up here. So, a lot to talk about tonight. Kings going into the night, 3-game losing streak after a 3-game winning streak. Crazy stuff is happening. 9 out of the next 10 games are at Golden One Center. Doug Christie is the head coach because Alvin Gentry is diagnosed with COVID. We are missing Marvin Bagley and Terrence Davis tonight due to COVID protocols. Rashawn Holmes is still out. And Davion Mitchell gets the start along with Alex Len. Calvin, how are you feeling about this? What are your first thoughts on this tonight?
My first thoughts are, thank goodness the Kings had a good fourth quarter because this was a game that it was really sloppy in the first half. The Kings came out and played with a bunch of energy early in the game, and I liked what I saw, but they had nothing to show for it. They didn't lead for most of the first half, and then going into that fourth quarter, Harrison Barnes finally makes an appearance. He comes back, 15 big points in the fourth quarter. We're going to talk more about him. Davion played, I thought, really well the whole game. De'Aaron Fox had another fantastic game offensively, and they were able to get enough stops down the stretch to build a lead and eventually go win going away. So very, very happy that they were able to get this win because this was a game where they outplayed Washington in a lot of areas. It would have been very disappointing to have come up short in this one.
Yeah, we got to take a look at Montrezl Harrell and Kyle Kuzma, Kings that could have been this past offseason if that Buddy Hield trade had officially gone through. There was also some talk of boycotting the Kings, and I saw a hashtag boycott the Kings hashtag that was going around. Pretty interesting. The stands looked pretty empty for most of the game. However, the Kings did get a win. De'Aaron Fox last year averaged 30 points per game, 5.5 steals per game in the 2 games against the Wizards. Kyle, you want to jump here into the box score?
Yes, I do. De'Aaron Fox again leads the way for Sacramento with 28 points, 4 assists, 10 of 16 shooting, 8 of 13 at the foul line, 13 free throw attempts. I don't know for sure, but I'm guessing that's a season high for him. He was at the free throw line early and often. Harrison Barnes, as I mentioned, 15 of his 19 points in the fourth quarter to go along with 5 rebounds and 3 assists. All 6 of his free throws were converted as well. Tyrese filled the stat sheet, 8 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Big, big game from him. Even though he didn't score a ton and didn't shoot great, he affected the game in a ton of different areas.
0 of 6 from the three-point line.
0 of 6 from 3, 4 of 12 from the field. And then the bench, again, you know, we'll talk about it more, but as COVID is becoming more of a thing or more of an issue that we're seeing teams have to deal with, it's been reported that they're going to ramp up testing for both vaccinated or unvaccinated players across the league. This could be not a good thing for the Kings, but the fact that their bench is so deep, I think might benefit them more than other teams if, a lot of these teams get big COVID outbreaks. And the bench played well again today. 15 points from Buddy Hield, 4 of 7 from 3, 15 points for Tristan Thompson, and 13 for Metu, 2 for Mo Harkless as well.
Yeah, we saw De'Aaron Fox get in foul trouble early in this game, 3 fouls before halftime. Doug Christie showed his trust in him, left him in the game, and let him do his thing. He ended up finishing the game with only 4 fouls. He didn't foul out. Like you mentioned, 28 big points. There was a players-only meeting, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, that was after the last loss. De'Aaron Fox seemed fired up in his post-game press conference. We saw some action on Twitter, stuff like that. He definitely had a mission tonight, and you could see it in his aggressiveness.
Yes, absolutely. I think you could see it really from everybody, but De'Aaron is in a zone right now offensively. It's that early season slump that he had is long gone at this point. Mm-hmm. The number of threes that he takes per game has dropped a lot since the beginning of the season, and I think that has really helped him big time in getting back into a groove offensively. He gets to his spots with ease now, pulling up at the free throw line consistently, and he continues to just push the ball, push, be a blur in the open court, and get to the basket at will. And we saw him get to the free throw line as well tonight. So he really is playing, his best basketball offensively of the season, has been for the past week or so. The thing is, he just needed that other person or other multiple people to step up. And finally, we got it from Harrison Barnes tonight, 19 points overall. Yep. And everybody else that played, kind of chipped in as well. Not great defensively. There was a good portion of this game where it was just trading baskets back and forth. So they still have a lot of work to do on that end. But it was encouraging to see a lot of these guys step up and play well offensively.
Yeah, this is the first time the Kings have held a team under 110 points since that last victory against the Clippers. A couple things that stood out to me in team statistics: the Kings shot 55% from the field in this game. They held the Wizards to less than 21% shooting from three-point range. They had 5 more assists than the Wizards, and the Kings dominated in paint points. Do you want to jump into your keys of the game?
Yeah. So my keys of the game were, number 1, get easy baskets, which they did a lot tonight, particularly De'Aaron Fox did that a lot. Almost every basket that he got tonight seemed to be easy. It was right at the rim, or it was a wide open mid-range jump shot. So that's beautiful to watch. Number 2 was get HB going. And I was really nervous there for most of this game because I didn't think that was going to happen. And then finally, I thought when he got that big dunk over Kuzma in the open court, I was like, man, that's going to ignite him, but it still took him a little bit longer after that. Even that first 3 he made to put him up 4 with like 8 minutes left or something. It was 98-94. You could just see the relief on his facial expression, his body language, man. Like, finally, I got one to go. But from that point on, it was just attack. He got to the free throw line a bunch of times, and he converted. And then the last key to the game was team effort on the glass. Daniel Gafford and Montrezl Harrell were killing Sacramento in the first half. Offensive rebounds, they seemed to be doing whatever they wanted inside. But we saw Alex Len get that big block in the second half. They really limited those guys. And the rebounding overall was dead even, I believe, 39-39, and just 7-6 on the offensive glass. So the Kings did a good job there as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Montrezl Harrell. Many Kings fans know this guy as Mr. Uh-oh from his time in L.A. Only 2 rebounds for him tonight. So that's a lot of improvement for the Kings. So
yeah, absolutely.
Very, very happy to see that. Let's talk a little bit about Davion Mitchell. This is his first career start. We've been seeing him play much better offensively over the past few weeks. Seems to have finally got his game. He is a one-on-one player. You saw him take multiple guys to the basket when he needed to. What'd you like? What'd you dislike from Davion tonight?
I didn't dislike very much. I mean, he didn't shoot incredibly well. He was only 1 of 4 from 3. 6 of 13 overall is not bad, though. 5 assists to 2 turnovers. I love his aggressiveness, how he's getting to the hoop a lot. He, like you said, he's an isolation player, a lot like De'Aaron Fox. Really, really good with the ball in his hands. But I think he's getting better at seeing the floor as well. You know, he was in that fourth quarter, he had that great play where he gets trapped, almost turns the ball over, but gets it back and finds Harrison Barnes wide open underneath for an and one. So it's not like the guy isn't looking for teammates at all. I think he's gotten much better at picking and choosing his spots, knowing when he has an advantage.
Yep.
A lot of times he had Davis Bertans on him tonight, which no chance for Davis Bertans to guard Davion Mitchell. Absolutely no chance. So I loved the fact that he was aggressive trying to get to the basket when he saw that he had those opportunities. And look, this was his first start. I thought he really, really took advantage of the opportunity, played well, always hustles and plays good defense. So I never really have much to critique or criticize from him in that regard.
It's a pretty small lineup.
Very small lineup. Very, very small. But, I mean, you know, if Terrence Davis is healthy, he's gotten the start in a lot of those situations.
Yep.
And he's taller than Davion, but he's not that much taller than Davion. So it's not like this was the smallest starting lineup that they've had all year. But this was a team I felt they knew they could get away with it against, because outside of Daniel Gafford, you know, the Wizards don't have a lot of size. They got some big forwards in Bertans, and Avdia has good size as well. But the rest of the guys are relatively small.
Pretty small.
Harrell, yeah, but they
Kuzma's
usually play
6'10".
They usually play 4, you know, relatively small players or smaller players and 1 big, just like the Kings do. So I think this was a game that they definitely knew they could get away with playing that lineup. And I tweeted about it before the game, but I thought it was quite the coincidence that in Doug Christie's first start, the guy that plays the best defense on the team also makes his first start.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think if Marvin Bagley were healthy, he would probably get the start tonight, because I know him and Doug Christie have had that connection throughout this season. But you know, there was no potential for that because he was out due to the protocols. You mentioned Doug Christie. I know a lot of Kings fans are fired up. They got to see 2 things that they have been wishing for all year, and that's Davion Mitchell starting and watching Doug Christie coach this team. They get a big win tonight. We saw a challenge in the third quarter early on, which I don't know if it was the right play or not. It ended up being an unsuccessful challenge. It didn't come back to bite the Kings later in the game, which is lucky for them. But how'd you feel about Doug Christie's coaching debut?
Very good about it. First of all, I'm really, really happy for Doug. Everybody loves Doug Christie, and for good reason. He's an incredibly well-respected individual within the Sacramento Kings organization. Always works hard. You can't help but root for the guy, and I think that this was the first step towards the eventual goal for him of being a head coach in this league, which I believe that he is going to get one day. I hope that it would be with Sacramento, but I don't know if that'll be the eventual how it plays out. I will say that this was a good thing for him to put on his resume moving forward, and maybe Alvin Gentry going forward sort of gives him more responsibility and stuff like that, because I think that Alvin Gentry would be a great mentor for him in that position. But just really happy for Doug overall, happy that for the Kings that they were able to pull out the victory. And, you know, in terms of X's and O's, it's one game, and it's kind of hard to really see much of a difference between one coach or another. Obviously, the starting lineup is different, but they had a couple guys out for COVID protocols anyway, so he had to make a move. And I liked the move he made starting Davion. I thought it was really, really good. So happy for Doug. And, yeah, it's just a stepping stone for him moving forward.
Yeah, it was just announced this morning that Gentry and those other 2 Kings players were out. So you look at a timetable for return is probably about 10 days. Today's the 15th. That means they're not going to return until that game against the Grizzlies on the 26th. So we could potentially see Davion Mitchell and Doug Christie out there for the next 4 games. Is 5 games enough of a sample size for you to look and say, hey, I like this guy in Doug Christie. Maybe we need to make him the head coach through the rest of the season. Or is it just, a small drop in a big barrel?
I think it's a small drop in a big barrel. 5 games, when you think about an 82-game season, is such a very small amount of time. It's certainly enough time to make a good impression. And I think what Doug has going for him is they brought him on this year for specific reasons. They felt like he would be a great addition to the staff. And I think he's on the fast track. He's got a more accelerated rate maybe towards getting a head coaching job than a lot of other guys would in their first year as a coach in the league. But I do think that 5 games is not quite enough for me to say I'm ready to hand the keys of the franchise over to you.
Yeah. I've always loved Doug when he was a player. I loved, him as a commentator. I like seeing him now on the bench. But it just makes me think a little bit like, well, this guy's a little bit younger than Alvin Gentry. Maybe he's, a little bit closer to some of these players because he's been around for so long. He's a Kings icon in Sacramento. He's lived in Sacramento for a really long time. He was a much better player than Luke Walton was in his prime, and he played on the Kings, not on a rival team. So maybe just this overall respect surrounding Doug Christie can help affect this Kings team in a positive way. And, of course, it always helps when you have a guy that preaches defense first.
Yeah.
Because we all know Alvin Gentry. We like Alvin Gentry, but he's not a defense-first guy.
No, you're right. There is a lot to like about Doug Christie as a person, as a player, and as a coach. And I think that he is definitely the definition of a player's coach, which is really important in the NBA. I think that those coaches tend to succeed more than others, more than the school of hard knocks type guys. I mean, Tom Thibodeau has had success in the league.
Yep.
Players like playing for him. But there also is that other side that comes with playing for Tom Thibodeau. People worry that he runs his players into the ground and all that stuff. Doug Christie, to me, I think would be a good combination of both. He's a defensive-minded guy, but I also feel like he's totally a player's coach, and players would really enjoy playing for him.
Yeah, he strikes me as the guy, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. And setting an example like that is huge. Let's talk a little bit about Tristan Thompson. 21 minutes for him tonight, 15 points off the bench, 4 rebounds, a steal. The Kings had to go through a lot of players tonight, not having Holmes, Bagley, Terrence Davis available. Tristan Thompson, I felt like, was their main size off the bench in this game, and he had to match up with guys like Montrezl Harrell. I loved what I saw out of TT tonight. 6 of 7 from the field, 3 of 4 from the free throw line. He's efficient. He stays in the middle. He's healthy. He just does all the little things, and I love it. How do you feel?
Definitely. I agree with you completely. This was a typical Tristan Thompson game. Comes in and is, like you said, very efficient, affects the game in a lot of different ways. Getting the 15 points out of him is a huge plus because you're not always going to get that many points. But they looked to get him the ball inside a lot. I love the way he runs the floor. He just always is one of the first guys down there, right to his spot, right under the basket, on the block. He plays the game the right way, works really, really hard on the glass, and those are all things that the Kings need every single night. So
this might be a really easy question for you, but you have a king of the game tonight?
A king of the game?
Yeah. Are you going De'Aaron Fox? Or?
It's hard not to go with De'Aaron Fox. The guy has just been on such a tear offensively. I didn't like the early fouls early on. I thought that a lot of those fouls, he was just reaching, and I even saw him really move his feet well and cut off guys on the drive, but he still reached when he had already beaten them to the spot. And it's like, you just can't give away that great defense for a cheap foul like that, especially when you pick up a bunch early in the game. Yep. But he did a really good job of monitoring that in the second half, and he just took over offensively. He was brilliant getting to the basket. So, I'm going to have to go with him. Harrison Barnes played a fantastic fourth quarter, so he gets an honorable mention just for finally breaking out of that slump and really being effective and aggressive offensively in the fourth. And it really is great to see him get going finally. But for the whole game, it's got to be De'Aaron. Although I loved what I saw from Tyrese Haliburton too. I mean, stat sheet stuff for 3 steals and 3 blocks to go along with 8 rebounds and 9 assists was really, really awesome.
I would like him to shoot a little bit better. 4 of 12. He didn't make a 3 in this game, even though he had 6 attempts. But
he's been shooting really well as of late. He just didn't have it tonight. He had good looks. He just didn't convert, and that was for basically the whole team. I mean, they didn't shoot well from outside at all as a team. So.
Yep. And when he's making these shots, this Kings team is a pretty good team. You mentioned Harrison Barnes. I feel like Harrison Barnes has been the X factor on this Kings team this season because when he plays well, the Kings play well.
Yeah.
We missed him during, all those games due to his absence from injury, but it's good to have him back. It seems like he's finally back in the flow of the game, and hopefully the Kings can get some wins here. I mentioned earlier on that this is the first game the Kings have held an opponent under 110 points since that last win against the Clippers. Was there anything that you saw defensively that the Kings were doing differently tonight?
No, there wasn't much. I mean, they played a better fourth quarter. Bradley Beal was hot all game long, and when that guy gets going, even with good contests and stuff, a lot of times there's not really much you can do to slow him down. It was just one of those nights. But the Wizards were scoring really, really well with pretty little resistance early on in this game. It was a trade baskets game back and forth for a long time. And then the fourth quarter, I thought that the Kings were better with their rotations. They contested a lot more shots, and they, fortunately, none of these other guys were able to get hot and really kill them. Davis Bertans missed a bunch of threes in that fourth quarter. Spencer Dinwiddie had a pretty rough game all around. So Bradley Beal just didn't really get any help. Montrezl Harrell and Gafford, I think, both had 14 points, but they each did most of their damage in the first half. And the Kings were able to do a much better job of getting rebounds and making sure that those guys weren't getting easy second chance opportunities.
Yeah, that they held the Wizards only 16 points in the fourth quarter. And, they've played a lot of good defense in the fourth quarter this season. But when you're down 20, 25, sometimes 30 points in these games, it doesn't matter if you only allow 10 or 16 points in the fourth quarter because it's such a hill to climb to get back to it.
Yeah.
It's really important that this Kings team stays within 10 points close in these games, and that's what they did tonight, and that's what made the difference in the fourth quarter is them not having to dig themselves out of this big hole to get out, and they could actually play ahead, and I love to see it. Let's see. Fred said, we are going to need a defensive coach in the future. We still need to make a move to make the next step.
I agree with that. I think a defensive-minded coach is exactly what this young Kings team needs. They need to learn or figure out how to play defense. That's the last piece of the puzzle that's missing for them, alongside with maybe trying to add, a second star alongside of De'Aaron Fox or something like that. But we've talked about it all the time. If the Kings could just improve to a middle-of-the-pack defensive team, be somewhere in the 14 to 17 rank in the league in terms of defensive scoring, defensive efficiency, all that stuff. The number of wins they're going to get out of that is going to increase by a lot. Maybe it's not 10 wins, but you don't need an extra 10 wins necessarily to make the playoffs. We're talking a very reasonable increase that is going to make this team a playoff team if they can just figure out a way to buckle down and play defense for a whole game.
Yep. It said on your stat sheet, Rashawn Holmes was out for a did not play coach's decision, but I think it was linked to that eye injury still.
That's certainly what it sounded like, yeah.
Do you expect him back on Friday? When do you see him coming back here?
Hard to say. I mean, I really haven't heard much of an update in terms of him improving. It seems like this injury is really kind of lingering for him, and maybe it's because he's had the multiple eye things, over the past month or so. I certainly hope they get him back soon because they really, really need him. All these guys, Len, Thompson, Davion Jones, they come in and they do their job and they play well in spurts. But the Kings are undeniably a better team when Rashawn Holmes is in the lineup.
Brian, yeah, did you see De'Aaron Fox get poked in the eye? And
he got hit twice.
Katie's like, I've had enough of seeing these Kings players getting poked in the eye. You know, I do have to say, honestly, normally I feel like
no foul called.
Getting poked in the eye is one of the funniest injuries ever because you watch it in like slow motion and they get poked in the eye and it's like
one of the most annoying.
It's a late reaction and you're like, how'd you get poked in the eye? Didn't you see it coming? But when it happens to my team, I don't like it at all. And I hope Rashawn Holmes can get better soon. I don't know if it's an actual like eyeball injury or if it's like a scratch.
It's a laceration up above the eye. I've heard two different things. I've heard that he did get stitches. I've seen a tweet from his mom that said he wouldn't need stitches. I don't really know what the actual outcome of that was, but either way, any type of bad cut that's right around your eye, even if it's like right on your eyelid, every time you blink, it's going to be super annoying and painful. So.
Or if you're wearing goggles and it's
at all.
hitting the goggles back and forth.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I see someone in the chat mentioning Metu. You want to talk about Metu?
Yeah, I thought he played really, really well. I've been a Metu fan, throughout this whole process ever since he's been in Sacramento. To me, in terms of the power forwards they have on this team, Metu has by far the most potential. Coming into the league, Marvin Bagley had that potential, surrounding him. He was a super high draft pick, super high recruit, played really, really well. But Chimezie Metu, he's more athletic than Marvin Bagley is. I think he can become a much, much better defender than Marvin Bagley can. He's a better ball handler. He has a good shooting form if he can ever consistently develop an outside shot. This guy has a tremendous amount of talent. He just is slowly working on putting it together. And he's taken some big steps. Last summer, playing with the Nigerian national team in the Olympics, he really, really balled out. I think that gave him a ton of confidence heading into this season. And, he struggled with his shot this year. But in terms of just gifted athletic ability and talent, he's got loads of it. So I really hope that he puts it together.
Yeah, I really like Metu a lot. He is exciting. He's very, very exciting to watch.
One thing I did not like from Metu tonight was that one-handed alley-oop attempt.
Yeah.
I mean, that play, it would have been an incredible highlight if he pulled it off, but I think that was one of those moments. As soon as he got the ball in his hand, he should have known that dunk didn't have much of a chance. And I didn't like both Katie Christensen and Kyle Draper were sort of singing his praises for that athletic play when he should have had an easy layup. I mean, easy layup. So didn't like that very much, but.
Couple more things I want to touch on here, and then I want to jump into the next next section and around the crown because I have a ton of King stuff. I want to talk about trades. I want to talk about draft. I want to talk about a bunch of different things. So before we move on to that, someone's talking about Harkless here. 21 minutes for Mo tonight, only 2 points. What'd you like? What'd you dislike? Is there anything you liked out of Mo Harkless tonight?
Man, Mo Harkless is... I don't have much good things to say about his performances really lately. The guy, he's supposed to be out there for his defense. I thought he looked lost on defense a lot tonight. He has trouble staying in front of guys. He struggled shooting all year long. He's really regressed from where he started the season out, and he didn't really start the season out on a super high note. So it's unfortunate that he's struggling, and it's also unfortunate the Kings are kind of forced to play him now because they don't have a lot of wings, and they're down all these guys now from the COVID protocol, so they really needed to go deep into that bench, but he really didn't give him much at all today.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting performance by Mo Harkless tonight. All right, next thing I want to talk about was that challenge in the third quarter. Was that weird? I feel like Alvin Gentry would not have done that.
I thought it was the right move. I didn't think that was a foul on De'Aaron Fox. So I liked the challenge simply because I thought it was the wrong call. And Fox was already in foul trouble, so I felt like it was a good move from Doug Christie.
You have a point with him being in foul trouble, but they're only down 4. It's super early in the third quarter. Challenges are so valuable. I know they didn't exist up until 2 years ago, but they're so valuable towards the end of the game. And we've seen plays in this Kings season that could have gone either way. Maybe they weren't challenged or we didn't win the challenge, but having that option is so powerful.
So I totally agree with you. I think that challenges are better saved for late game situations, especially when the refs are put in difficult situations in a close game where they might feel like they either have to swallow or blow the whistle, one of the two. However, I liked the move here, again, because of Fox's foul trouble. I feel like if you have a play where you believe the call was wrong and you have an opportunity to save a foul on your best player who's having a great game, who is already in foul trouble, I think it's the right move.
Yep. You want to say anything about this boycott the Kings hashtag that's going around?
It's just really sad.
Someone asked me earlier today
if that's what it actually takes for the Kings to become good. That bums me out.
Someone asked me earlier today in a comment, and I said whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, I agree with that mentality. I just love basketball so much. It would be hard for me to boycott.
Oh, if I had season tickets, I'd be there. If I had, tickets, I'd be there. Yeah. I was looking in a Facebook group, Kings Kingdom or whatever it's called, Sacramento Kingdom, and all the posts were about giving away tickets tonight to the game. And someone commented in there, the Kings are good when half the posts in here are about giving away tickets.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into the Kings with another section called Around the Crown. Welcome back. This is Around the Crown. We're talking all things Sacramento Kings and beyond. Join the Royal family by hitting that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, you might as well smash up that like button. So, Calvin, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but after the last loss, the Kings held a players-only meeting. What do you think about these player-only meetings? Because, I feel like they can go either way.
They can go either way. I think they're always good. Whether or not they work or not, I've been involved in players-only meetings before, and even if you don't come out and change a lot from how you play on the court, there's still a lot of good things that can come out of those meetings. Mm-hmm. Number one, it's an opportunity for these guys to just vent and get their frustrations out in a safe area where the media is not around, nobody hears what's being said. So I think that's good for any human being. It bottling stuff up and keeping it inside 9 times out of 10 is worse than letting it out, even if the person that you're talking to doesn't want to hear what you're saying.
You have to let it out in the right way.
In the right way, yes. Definitely. And in those meetings, a lot of times it probably doesn't get let out in the right way. But I still think that players-only meetings are really valuable. Whatever works, just like my man Gothen is saying here. And by the way, I want to shout you out because I keep seeing you in the chat saying hit that like button. Thank you so much, bud. We really support or appreciate your support, so thank you for that. But yeah, player accountability, like he's saying, all of that stuff comes out of players-only meetings. And we talk a lot about leadership from the Kings or lack thereof. A players-only meeting is a big opportunity for somebody like De'Aaron Fox to really take a step forward, say what's on his mind, talk to everybody, kind of rally the troops around him.
Yep.
Again, whether it actually does anything or not, that remains to be seen. But if you don't have those meetings, maybe nothing change. There's more of a chance that something will change if you have those meetings than if you don't.
Yeah.
So I think that having a players-only meeting is usually a good thing.
One thing that I find weird is that Alvin Gentry missed this game due to testing positive for COVID. Bagley and Terrence Davis were both out due to COVID protocols.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing they didn't test positive, but they were probably in close contact with maybe Coach Gentry or whatever. But they just had a players-only meeting where all these players were together in the same place. How is that not COVID protocols?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to
Can't
to
just cancel the whole
officiate,
game,
right?
I guess,
Yeah,
huh?
I mean, if that's the rationale, then probably the whole season has to be suspended again, right? Because close contact, they just played games with all of these guys, and they're all hugging each other and high-fiving and stuff after the game, and swapping jerseys, and so everybody's in close contact. I don't know how you actually make the official call on this stuff, but
weird world we live in. All right, moving on. So I saw an article by the Sacramento Bee claiming that the Kings have not engaged the Pacers in trade talks for Miles Turner or Domantas Sabonis. You and I love both of those players. I think we like Miles Turner a little bit better just because we feel like he fits this team a little bit better. Is this disappointing to you to hear that they haven't even engaged? They haven't even, discussed a potential trade? I don't really know what engaged means. You hope that they would at least call them and say, hey, who do you want? We want Miles Turner.
Yeah, I am disappointed. I think this is an opportunity here for the Kings. It's an opportunity for Monte McNair. And, it's kind of the same thing that we talked about with this players-only meeting. You can have the meeting, and whether or not they play better after it, that remains to be seen. You can engage in trade talks, and you might still not end up pulling off a deal, but you can't make the deal if you don't try, right? I feel like the Kings, Monte McNair should be calling them pretty much every day. I don't really understand what we're waiting for here.
Yeah, and it had been mentioned that the Kings were trying to trade Buddy Hield, trying to trade Marvin Bagley. When you hear about other guys that are available, you at least give them a call to see if you can work out a deal. I know Clutch Points posted a Sabonis to the Kings trade, Marvin Bagley, Buddy Hield, and a first-round pick for Domantas Sabonis. I like that move. How do you feel about that move?
Yeah, sign me up for that deal. Like I said, I would rather have Miles Turner because of, just the way he affects the game in totality, both defense and offense. But if I can get Sabonis for Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley, and a first-rounder, I will definitely take that.
Gothen. It's Gothen.
Sorry, Gothen.
Think little skinny kids in black or clowns that rap, maybe.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. That I will remember for sure now. Gothen.
I think like Gotham, like Batman.
Yeah.
Gothen.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. Okay. I think Sabonis would be awesome, but either of these guys, you got to make a call.
I'd be happy to have either one.
You got to make a call.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Right?
I came up with an interesting trade deal. Bagley and Hield for Gordon Hayward. Gordon Hayward got paid by the Hornets.
He does have a very big price tag.
Kings need some wings.
But they need some wings. Savvy veteran, really good scorer.
Yeah.
Doesn't play a lot of defense.
I heard he's good at Twister.
But hey, he'll fit right in on this Kings team if he doesn't play a lot of defense. So, but no, it fills an area of need. Getting another wing and getting a reliable scoring option, second scoring option as well. So yeah, I wouldn't shake my head at that trade.
I don't know if you'd be able to play with the speed that this Kings team needs to play with, but I think he's an upgrade over both of those players.
Yeah.
And I think
good
he's
outside
a
shooter.
consistent
so
player.
A team that plays fast can get people like that a lot of open looks from three. I think he would take advantage of that.
Yeah, Victor said, would you take Tyrese and Harrison and an unprotected first for Jaylen Brown?
Absolutely.
Everyone loves Jaylen Brown.
Well,
here.
yeah, why wouldn't you? But look, I'm going to say it again. If Jaylen Brown is actually available, he's probably the number one best player that's available via trade in the entire league.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take more than that to get him, in my opinion. It's going to take a lot more than that.
Isaiah Stewart for Tristan Thompson.
That's a pretty lateral move, I think. You know, Isaiah Stewart and Tristan Thompson do a lot of the same things really, really well. Isaiah Stewart's a little younger. They might have him for more than a year if Tristan Thompson really is retiring next year. But, you know, I don't see either team getting that much better from that deal.
I want to talk a little bit more about this Gordon Hayward deal. Vinny, can you show my my screen here? So it works. It works on the NBA trade machine, whatever that means. But basically, Buddy Hield, Marvin Bagley for Gordon Hayward. Straight up, it works. You get 2 more years of Gordon Hayward. You get rid of the Marvin Bagley problem. You upgrade over Buddy Hield. I don't know if you really take into the wins on the bottom there. It's predicting the Kings are going to win 3 more games with this trade. I would guess it would probably be more than that.
Who are you starting? Is Harrison Barnes still starting?
Oh, I'm probably starting both of those guys. Yeah, I'm probably going to
Harrison's
start
gonna be your
Harrison at the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, the reason I mentioned this trade is you look, you know, they have Mikal Bridges. They have Kelly Oubre. You know, the Hornets have a lot of pieces. You add a high upside guy in Marvin Bagley, who's got a chip on his shoulder at this point, and another volume shooter in Buddy Hield that is going to get open looks from Ball. I think this is a win-win for both teams.
Yeah, and the Hornets don't have a lot of big men right now either. So,
yeah, I think this is a win-win for both teams. I love it if they could throw Kai Jones back to us in that deal. I like Kai Jones a lot.
yeah.
There we go. Still 3 wins. All right, Vinny, you can cut it. Okay, moving on here. Let us know down below in the comments or in the chat how you feel about Gordon Hayward. If you feel like he would mesh on this Kings team.
That's funny.
I think Bagley and Hield are for sure out the window before the trade deadline. I think you could do a lot worse than a guy like Gordon Hayward. Okay, moving on. So, Zion Williamson. I read an article on him today talking about the reasons why the Pelicans should consider moving on from Zion. We talk about the Kings and their GM, Monty McNair, and his potential plan of stacking assets and trading for a big-name player, potentially a superstar or a guy with talent. Do you feel like Zion is still that guy? Should the Kings try and make a move for Zion? And what are you willing to give up for him?
Oh, wow. That's tough, man. I love Zion Williamson, but this past 6 or 7 months has got me a little worried about him. Big guys who struggle staying in shape.
Yep.
That continues for
Sacramento
a long time.
has to take a chance.
And this guy's only, like 20, 21 years old, and he's already having these problems. And big guys who have foot problems with a lot of weight,
yep,
that's a scary, scary scenario as well. I mean, they've already had to shut him down completely because his foot's not healing correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of those things that could turn bad real fast. But the potential with Zion Williamson is absolutely astronomical. So
it's a tough move.
Tough
the
call.
Kings
it's
have to do something.
Huge risk versus reward move.
The Kings have to do something. They have to. You don't get a talent like this or an option to get a talent like this. I don't even know if he's available. I'm just saying you don't get a shot at talent like this very often at all. And we talked about in the last podcast about having guys on your team that have an immediate impact and elevate your squad to where you don't get other good picks to surround them by talent. This could potentially be a situation where if you can trade for Zion and keep your pick this year, you're going to end up with potentially another top 5 pick going next season with Zion Williamson, a top 5 pick, whoever else you're able to salvage on this roster from that trade. You know, that could be a quick retooling or rebuild for the Kings.
It could. I imagine the price to get Zion is going to be pretty hefty. So it could be not as quick as you might think.
You could keep one of Mitchell, Haliburton, and Fox. I think you could keep one of those guys.
I don't think you're going to have to trade all three of them.
Potentially your pick and Zion going into next year.
I feel like they're going to want at least one draft pick.
Well, you don't have to give them this year's draft pick.
No, that's true. But you're talking about a quick retool here.
Yeah.
If you give up draft picks, I have a feeling it's going to cost multiple draft picks to get a guy like Zion Williamson. And you're going to have to give up definitely one of your top 3 players, maybe even 2. I'm not so sure. I just don't know that it would translate to automatically the Kings are a playoff team. I would love to have a guy like Zion Williamson if he's healthy. I would love to.
And he's got 2 years left on his deal. He's making $10 million on that rookie scale contract. I think it's a great buy low opportunity, whatever low is for a guy like Zion Williamson.
But I don't think the price is going to be that low. I really don't. Even if he's hurt. If you're New Orleans, you would be stupid to try to give him away for what I think would be an undervalued deal.
What about Fox and 2 first-round picks? Would you do that if you're the Pelicans?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, they have struggled to find a point guard ever since Drew Holiday left, so
they got a lot of options.
I don't know.
All right, moving on here. Speaking of another ex-Pelican, Lakers fans are calling for the team to trade Anthony Davis. I have no idea why.
Lakers fans are dumb.
They are dumb, and we all know that. I think they would be stupid to trade Anthony Davis. I think that's one of the dumbest things.
It would be one of the worst decisions I think any franchise has made.
If you're Monty and you hear that Anthony Davis is available, what are you willing to give up?
First off, when did everyone stop liking Anthony Davis? Everyone I talk to is like, Anthony Davis is trash. The guy sucks, blah, 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 all this stuff. I just don't understand it. Yeah, he's not having a good year shooting. But this guy is unbelievable. I mean, I would do unspeakable things to get somebody like that on my team. I don't understand why everyone hates him so much. What would I give up for him? I'd give up. There's no player on the Kings that I wouldn't trade for him. I'm sorry. There's just not a single one I wouldn't trade.
Yeah, but there's got to be a balance, right? Like, you can't give up everybody on the squad for him
of course, I'm not going to mortgage the entire future just for him.
So what are you willing? How much are you willing to give up?
I would give up De'Aaron Fox plus one other player and multiple draft picks for Anthony Davis. Absolutely.
I think that's a good deal.
Absolutely, I would.
Does that make the Lakers better?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they have Westbrook and Fox.
We talked about wanting to see that. Yeah.
I also hear the Lakers want to trade Westbrook.
I don't think the Kings should jump on that. I've been a big fan of Westbrook. I like Westbrook. I think he'd be great to bring to the Kings just for his attitude, but I'd much rather have Anthony Davis. Vinny, can you show my screen here? What do you think about this deal, Cal? Anthony Davis for Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes, and a couple draft picks.
Oh, my God. That would be the steal of the century. Are you kidding me?
The Lakers have so many bigs. They wanted Buddy Hield. He can space the floor with Westbrook, LeBron. You fill in Harrison Barnes in there.
Yes. Absolutely, I would do that deal.
5 first-round picks.
Oh, is that included?
I don't know.
Oh.
How much are you willing to give up?
I'd definitely give up 2, maybe even a third.
Yep.
Yeah, probably 3. Yeah, I mean, dude, Anthony Davis, in my opinion, is one of the... He's definitely a top 10 player. And when he's shooting well, if he's hitting from outside, he's the top 5 player in the league.
Yep, I agree. I'd give up a lot of things for a guy like Anthony Davis. All right, I see some people talking about Zion here. Tyrese, Davion, and 2 to 3 first-round picks for Zion.
It makes you think. It really does. I don't know, man. It's so hard. I I get so nervous trading for guys who are hurt.
Especially
I get so nervous.
Especially given all those future first round picks and stuff like that. Because it could either go really good or really, really bad. We saw what happened with who was it, the Clippers, when they traded Baron Davis to the Cavs, and they gave up a first round pick and ended up being the #1 overall pick and turned into Kyrie Irving. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. See some people saying they want Rudy Gobert. Good luck. I don't think the Jazz are interested in giving up Gobert.
I don't think the Jazz are interested in giving up anybody right now. They are on fire, and they've been one of the best teams in the league for the past 2 years. They're just a really well put together team.
Yep, I agree.
If I was them, I wouldn't mess with their chemistry at all. They've got all the pieces.
Yeah, and they got Conley for so cheap. Kristen, shout out. See you there. Gotta risk it to get the biscuit, she says. I think that's about Zion.
You're right about that. You're right about that.
I see Fox, Bagley, and 2 unprotected first-round picks for Anthony Davis.
I would do that.
Man, that's funny. Barnes needs to go ASAP. If it weren't for Fox, team would have been out of the game by the third quarter. I mean, that's generally what you could say about your best player, right? Is that your team's out of it if you don't have your best player.
Yeah, but at the same time, you saw the 1 point in the game where the Kings actually built a lead. It was when Fox got somebody to help him, and that was Harrison Barnes. So
true. Michael says
I
broken.
agree. Harrison Barnes has got to play better consistently. He needs to regain that early season form.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be open to trading Harrison Barnes if I was, like I've said before, if I was getting a wing player that I felt like was a starting caliber 3 in return. I would be open to that. But I do love Harrison Barnes as a player. He really is a complete basketball player. Rebounding, defense, scoring, shooting. The guy can do a little bit of everything. So he's a very valuable piece to have on most teams.
Michael says AD is broken.
He's struggling shooting the ball. I guarantee you ask any GM in the league, would they want Anthony Davis on their team? Every single one of them says yes.
Yeah, I'm still tripping over this Zion Williamson thing. You know, that's a tough question. It is really a tough question. I want to hear from you guys. How do you guys feel? Like Zion, the potential is so high, but how much are you willing to risk? And if you're a team like the Kings, you kind of have to take those risks sometimes because those guys aren't going. And speaking of which, what's going on with Paige over there? Can you turn him around?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We got to win tonight.
Paige is watching Doug Christie.
That's funny. What were you saying?
What was I saying? Oh, we're all assuming here that Zion's actually, like, the Pelicans are thinking about trading him, which who knows? Maybe they have had conversations behind closed doors about that. But I would be pretty surprised to see the Pelicans trade him before he gets back to playing on the court. I think they still want to see him play. You know, he had such an amazing year last year. So,
yeah, I think him and David Griffin have had issues, you know, him in the front office.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what that means. You know, you look at what happened with Anthony Davis, and they were like, okay, you already requested a trade. We're going to wait it out, and we're going to play you. How much do they play him? Like 10 minutes a game, 12 minutes a game, and then they take him out? I don't even understand that logic. Why do you play him? If you don't want him to get hurt, don't play him at all. Don't put him in there for like 10, 12 minutes and then pull him out. Like that's
I don't know. A part of it is you have to work your conditioning and your stamina and endurance back up. But, man, I don't know.
Curry had injuries and came back from it to be awesome. Maybe Zion can do something.
Yeah, Curry doesn't weigh 280 pounds, though.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say Kevin Durant's tall. He had a foot problem, but he's a lot lighter. He doesn't have all that weight that he's pulling around. And it's weird. You look at the photos of Zion, like I saw a photo where he was in good shape and one where he was in bad shape. And it's like, how do you tell what is right? Like, was he bloated one day? Is it an old picture? Is it a new picture? Like, it's so hard to tell.
Very hard. Very, very hard. camera adds 10 pounds too. Don't forget that.
Yeah. All right. Key Kings 8's asking about Jonathan Isaac.
Like Jonathan Isaac a lot. Another guy that's hurt and we haven't seen play in a while.
He's out for the whole year, right?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so.
Because I know he missed last season.
He missed all of last year too.
Yeah.
It's been a long road back for him.
It'd be interesting,
but when he's healthy, he has everything that the Kings need.
Yes.
Long wing, great defender, offensive potential, athletic. I mean, he's checks a lot of boxes for them.
Yeah, and these guys that are injured and you're trading for them injured, or they might miss a big chunk of time, is really such an interesting possibility, because you could potentially trade for a good guy and get a good pick at the end of the year and then come back fresh next year. Yeah. That's kind of a weird way to tank, right? Is trade all your good guys for an even better guy who's injured, get your pick if you can hold on to this year's pick and move on with like something serious to build around. On that subject, I wanted to talk about tanking. I want to hear your guys' perspective on tanking. And, there's a lot of different ways to rebuild a franchise. There's rebuilding through the draft. There's rebuilding through free agency. There's rebuilding by trading. There's a lot of different ways. And I feel like there's not one set way to do it, because so many different teams are in different positions. A team like the Lakers, you trade and sign big name guys. That's not something the Kings can do. So the Kings have to, I guess, weigh their different options. Now, everyone talks about tanking. They talk about getting good draft picks and stuff like that. I want to talk to you guys about, I want to give both perspectives on it. Vinny, can you show my screen here? I found a really cool article basically talking about what each draft spot in the lottery is worth. And they break down here, they talk about wins over replacement, or WAR. And it talks about pick one, your 13.5, and you can see here the top, 4 or 5 picks, it only has a little bit of drop, and then it starts to drop a little bit more significantly. So if you're picking 6, 7, 8, you're almost half the player of what you'd be technically drafting at number 1. All these don't translate exactly, but they take a ton of data and they pile it all in here, and you can kind of get an average of what each of these guys look like. And if you look at the Kings front office, they are very analytically driven, so I'm sure they have their own models and stuff like this. Now, another one I want to show you is expected performance from these draft picks. Now, this is a little bit older article. This is taken from information from 2008 all the way back to 1989. And they talk about average picks. So pick number 1 overall has an average rating of 27. The average stats, you could take that however you want. But it gives you star potential, solid player, and role player potential. And you can look here and you can see, the top 4, 5 picks have really high potential to have a star. And then it drops off pretty significantly once you get into pick 6 and lower. The Kings, the way they've been trying to get better, but also make the playoffs every year, is they end up with this mid pick every time, and they don't pick much in the top. They got De'Aaron Fox high in the draft. They got Marvin Bagley high in the draft. Other than that, they've been in that 6 through like 11, 12 range. And so it's interesting looking at stuff like this and looking at these numbers and how, most of these players that we're drafting, they have a better chance to be either a solid player or a role player than they have a star. People talk about De'Aaron Fox and whether he can do all this by himself. Obviously, he can't do it by himself. There's not a lot of people that can. You need at least 2 or 3 guys to win a championship in this NBA. So when you're not able to add guys through free agency, you haven't been very successful trading for guys. It's all about the draft. So this kind of gives you an idea. You look at these numbers, you think, well, maybe I'm better off getting a higher draft pick. But the key is pairing that guy with a good guy that you already have. And unfortunately, having a guy like De'Aaron Fox or a healthy De'Aaron Fox doesn't allow you to be in this 1 through 5 range because he plays well enough to keep you in the hunt. All right, Vinny, you can get rid of that there. Okay, the other side of the coin I want to talk about, teams that have had success without high draft picks. The first one that I can say that pops out the most to me is the 2018-2019 Eastern Conference champs, who went on to become the NBA champs, and that was the Toronto Raptors. You look at this Toronto Raptors team, they have 0 top 5 picks on that squad. They had 0 lottery picks on that entire team, not one single lottery pick. Their best player was Kawhi Leonard, who was drafted number 15, not by their franchise, but they ended up trading for him. Kyle Lowry was selected 24 overall by another franchise as well. And Pascal Siakam was drafted number 27 overall. He was the only one that team drafted out of those 3 players. Then you go to look at Serge Ibaka, 24, Danny Green, 46, Marc Gasol, 48. These were all guys that they were able to pick up from other teams in trades or free agency, stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying the Kings and the Raptors are the same because obviously the teams are much different, but I think they're in similar situations as in they're not huge free agency destinations. You look at Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet, guys that were undrafted. Norman Powell was 46th pick. Fred VanVleet was undrafted. So these were guys that the Raptors saw something in, and they were able to capitalize on that. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you can look at the 2018-2019 Knicks. They had 6 lottery picks on that roster, and they finished with the worst record in the entire NBA. So just some numbers for you guys to look at, some things to think about, when you're talking about draft picks, whether the Kings need to tank, whether they not need to tank. Just because you have a high draft pick doesn't always mean you're going to get a better player. The odds show that you are, but then that doesn't mean that player is going to create wins for your team. And then also it's all about the combination of adding all these good players together. You got any thoughts or comments on that? I know that was a lot of information.
It's a lot of information, and it's just a really interesting debate. How do you view building your team? Is it trying to stock draft picks? Is it trying to go out? I'll play devil's advocate to what you just said about the Raptors a little bit. Yes, they're not known maybe for being a free agent destination, but they were able to land Kawhi Leonard as a free agent. Yep. And even though he was the 15th overall pick, at that point in his career,
they traded for Kawhi.
They traded for him, which also allowed them to, I think, sign a couple of Marcus.
They traded for Gasol, traded for Kyle Lowry. I think it's mostly trades.
They made some good moves. But even though Kawhi Leonard was the 15th overall pick and nobody expected him to maybe be great, by the time he ended up in Toronto, he had already won Finals MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Tanking for me, it's just not the answer. Yes, odds show that the higher draft pick you get, the better chance you have of being a good player. But that's how it's supposed to work. There are plenty of guys that have burnt out of the league very, very quickly as top 4, even number 1 overall picks. I mean, everybody remembers Anthony Bennett. Plus, the biggest problem with tanking is your draft spot isn't guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So you can lose all these games and put yourself in the position, the best or the worst record overall, to have the best chance of getting the number 1 pick and still not get it.
Yep.
So that's why I'm just not a fan of tanking in general.
Gotham,
it's a
they used DeRozan in that trade for Leonard, but he was the number 9th pick. So he's not even a top 5 guy.
No, not at all. But he was an all-star, I believe, or played at a really, really high level.
Yep.
Regardless of anything, the Raptors were so much farther ahead of where the Kings are now in that whole rebuild. You know, having Lowry and DeRozan turn them into a relevant team, which they then were able to flip for Kawhi Leonard, and the rest is history. They ended up winning.
Valanciunas was a number 5 overall pick. He was traded for Marc Gasol. But I honestly don't know if that made a big enough difference for them to win. I think they still would have won the East having Valanciunas, and seeing how much the guy has been flourishing lately. Yeah. You're almost kind of like, wow, they really gave up a lot in this guy.
Let's be real. They went that far because of Kawhi.
Yeah.
That's whoever else they had around them. You know, maybe they don't win the finals, but they went as far as they did because they had Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, I also looked up, statistics on worst drafting GMs, worst drafting teams. The Sacramento Kings were actually not the worst drafting team in the NBA over the last 10, 15 years. Weird enough, statistically, it was the Cleveland Cavaliers, which is weird considering they drafted guys like Kyrie Irving and LeBron James. But when you take a guy...
You have 2 number 1 picks, Andrew Wiggins and Anthony Bennett. Andrew Wiggins is playing great this year, but he took a long time to get going. Anthony Bennett was the total bust.
Yeah, he
bust.
Brought their average down a lot. Makami says the Hawks used to suck for many years until they signed Joe Johnson to a big contract and traded for Mike Bibby. Yep. I mean... You know, it's a formula. Sometimes it's drafting. Sometimes it's signing. Sometimes it's a combination. Sometimes it's trading. It takes a little bit of luck. You look at the Warriors franchise, the dynasty that they created.
Luck is always one of the major factors.
Yes. You look at the Warriors dynasty that they created, you say, wow, that team drafted really well. However, they didn't really turn into a dynasty in my mind until they got Kevin Durant. And the only way that they were able to get Kevin Durant is because you could say they were lucky enough that Curry was injured early on in his career and he signed a 4-year, like $44 million contract. And Klay Thompson's deal was up at the same time, so they were able to sign him and re-sign Klay Thompson. And then Boogie was injured, and, not that he did much for them, but I'm just saying.
Let's not forget, Andre Iguodala won a Finals MVP for them.
Yes, after he said he was going to sign with the Kings.
Yeah. So, yes, they drafted really, really well. But, if you're going to be one of the best teams in the league, you have to put the whole package together. You can't just draft well. You can't just sign a big free agent. You can't just hire a good coach. It has to be all of that stuff together. Yep. You have to develop your young players. You have to sign a veteran that's going to make a key difference for you in one or multiple areas. It's the whole picture. It's not one of these things. It's all of them built together.
Any other guys you want to mention in the league you'd like the Kings to make a move for?
Well, I saw a lot of people mention OG Anunoby in the chat. I would love to have him. Again, just like Jonathan Isaac, checks a ton of boxes. Wing, young player, developing his game. He hasn't played a ton this year, but he was off to a really hot start. Great defender. If he brings his offensive game along with that, he could be a real big-time two-way player in the league. He'd be a great fit, I think.
Is he going to move the needle for them?
Maybe not right away. But again, he's young, and there's potential, for him to continue to get better with alongside somebody like De'Aaron Fox. That could be something that it might take a couple of years to develop. But I think bottom line is the Kings need to target somebody that's going to make an immediate change defensively. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest thing, and he would do that today if they had him.
Yeah, Goffin says development seems to be lacking a bit here, which is crazy considering the Kings have one of the best developmental coaches in the league, Enrico Hines. Players love him. They want to be around him, and he's in Sacramento as assistant coach on the bench.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I don't know if it's developmental coaching that's the problem or if it's maybe the developmental system or not putting confidence in these young players. Obviously, all the drama that's surrounding Marvin Bagley has not helped his development.
Yeah.
And, a a lot of it is his fault or his dad's fault or his family's fault, but there's a lot of it that falls on the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of take that a little bit further, development is an incredibly important part, like I just said, and you can develop really well individual players, but if the team together doesn't fit well or the system for that team isn't the right system to run, even if you're developing your players, if you don't, it's a team game. So if you're not playing the right way, or if your team's not constructed the right way in order to win, then you're just going to continue to struggle anyway.
Key Kings is asking about Jonathan Kuminga.
Love him.
I know you're a huge fan
Love
of
him.
Kuminga.
Warriors aren't going to give him up.
How are you feeling about James Wiseman? Do you think he's a realistic target?
I really don't know. I really don't know. The Warriors are playing with house money, man. I mean, they could move any of these young guys. They could move none of them. So I don't know if they would be available, what it would take to get them. I really don't.
Yeah, consistency is very important, but it has to be throughout. You have to have consistency in the front office. You have to have consistency in the coaching staff. You have to have consistency in the way that everybody approaches the game. But as far as players go, that's the difference between a good player and a great player is consistency. You know, all these guys are in the NBA for a reason. They've all been probably the best player on most of their teams their entire life. Any of these guys could go for 20 or 30 points in a night, but consistency is the main difference between a good NBA player and a great NBA player, because there's not a lot of guys in this league that can do it every night. And that's what the Kings are missing, is they have maybe one guy that can do it every night, if that.
Yeah.
And he needs help.
They're consistently inconsistent.
And he needs help. Oh, people are talking about Ben Simmons again. You have any updates on Ben Simmons?
I have no update.
This just in. Ben Simmons switched cell phone providers. Now he keeps it in his right pocket during practice, not his left pocket. That's all we really have to say about it. I like Ben Simmons. I just, the longer this goes on, the less confidence I have in him or anything, really. And, you know, I was thinking about it today. You look at Monty. Monty's mentor is the one that's part of this whole Ben Simmons saga. Yeah. So if he's like, oh, I'm just benching a coach, or benching a player, whatever, I don't need him. Sixers are still playing pretty well. The Kings can't afford to do that. But if this is the guy that he learned from or he is learning from, it makes me very afraid that one of these situations with a Bagley or a Hield could end up not good for the Kings.
Yeah.
And you could end up getting nothing for some of those guys. Nothing at all. System as a whole. San Antonio, Utah, LA, you know what's expected of you.
Yeah. I would add Miami into that.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you might even add Dallas in there too.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Boston.
I'm really surprised they moved on from Rick Carlisle. But you gotta make Doncic happy, I guess.
Yeah.
I remember Rondo really pissed off Carlisle, and he's like, "You're out." He didn't want to play. He didn't want him joining the team for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. Then Rondo comes to the Kings and balls out. I loved watching him and Boogie together, man. It was so exciting. I love me some Rondo. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to take another look at the Kings' next game of basketball with Kings Crusade.
All right, let's go back. Sorry, it's broken. All right, hit it.
Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV, a Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans. The Kings continue their crusade to get back to the playoffs. Next up is the Memphis Grizzlies. If you're a Kings fan, hit that like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel. So, Cal, Friday's game, Kings versus Grizzlies. Like I mentioned, 9 out of the next 10 games are at Golden One Center. How do you feel about this game? Kings got
Not
a chance
good.
here? No?
I mean, look, Memphis is one of the hottest teams in the league. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. They've done this all without Ja Morant, their best player. They're a matchup nightmare for the Kings. We already saw them absolutely wipe the floor with Sacramento back in Memphis not too long ago. The Grizzlies, statistically, are a really, really solid team. They're 6th in the league in scoring. They're number 1 in steals. They're tied for 1st in blocks. They're number 1 in rebounds. They're a dangerous, dangerous team, man. The Kings better come ready to play because it's going to be over quick if they come out with the same lackadaisical mentality that they did in Memphis.
Skip's
Just
got
like
some breaking news here.
Oh, is that right?
You see this? You want to read that?
Don't worry, everyone. Monty told me that Daryl told him that Ben is definitely coming to SAC, and he will make SAC a title contender in the West immediately. That is big-time breaking news.
Yeah, can you cite your source on that? Maybe MLS or Chicago style? You want to call in and we can talk to Monty
this is
and
your
Daryl?
moment right here.
So back to the Grizzlies game. How long is Morant out? Have we found out when
I
he's
don't
returning?
know. I
'Cause
know
he's still
I know
out.
they're not going to rush him back.
Yep.
I think they're just taking and talk about playing with house money. I mean, they've exploded
Yes.
since he's been gone, so they're definitely going to take their time with him coming back. And they have so many good young players that are not the same as John Morant, but they can hold their own at least for a little while, with him being out. I mean, the fact that they're number 1 in the league in all those categories,
it's pretty
it
staggering.
speaks volumes.
Pretty staggering. Maybe we could trade for him, huh?
Morant? Oh my God, yeah.
I know.
I'll take that.
I know you would love that. I think the key to winning this Grizzly game is Rashawn Holmes, whether he's going to be available or not.
They definitely are going to need him.
Yep.
Definitely are going to need him. Yeah, I mean, they're going to need everyone. This is going to be a team effort for sure.
I do like what I saw from them tonight. I think Haliburton's got to be a little bit more.
Did the Grizzlies win today? I know they were losing to Portland in the 3rd quarter.
Okay, you check on that.
Check that.
I know Haliburton's got to be a little more efficient in his shooting versus the Grizzlies. I think they need Rashawn Holmes back. We need another big game from De'Aaron Fox.
Memphis wins again.
Really?
9 of their last 11.
Wow, that's crazy. Just our luck, huh?
Yep.
And who knows? Maybe there'll be more Kings players out due to COVID protocols by then if they do their contact tracing right. It's weird that only 2 players and head coaches out. It's just kind of weird to me. Last second stuff. They beat the Blazers, huh?
They did.
Well, that's not much.
Beat
The
them by
Blazers
10 on the
have
road.
not been doing too well. Well, you want to jump into your keys to the game in Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more than 3 keys to this game. It's going to, like I said, it's going to take a pretty serious effort, I think, for the Kings to win this game. But number 1, crash the glass. As I mentioned, this is the number 1 rebounding team in the league. So you've got to be solid on the boards, which we would love to have Rashawn Holmes for. Hopefully that's the case, but we'll see. Number 2 is going to be protect the rock. Memphis is number 1 in steals, number 1 in blocks. Kings have a bad habit of bad turnovers and falling into a good portion of the game where they turn the ball over consistently. It leads to easy baskets. I mean, that was the reason that Washington was up early in this game, was turnovers, fast break points for a team that really doesn't get out and run very much at all. Memphis loves to run, so they cannot afford to give the Grizzlies easy opportunities here. And then number 3 is going to be execute in the half court because of what I just said. Memphis loves to get up and down. A track meet game, I think, even though the Kings want to play fast, this is a team that plays fast better than Sacramento. So they're going to have to execute in the half court. De'Aaron Fox is going to have to be great again. He's going to have to get that mid-range shot to fall with a lot of consistency in their half court sets. Tyrese Haliburton is going to have to run good offense for them. And they're going to have to take advantage of their opportunities in the half court because a missed shot could be 2 points very quickly on the other end.
Yeah, ESPN has Marvin Bagley and Terrence Davis and Rashawn Holmes all listed as out. I know Bagley and Terrence Davis are due to COVID protocols. Rashawn Holmes, I have no idea what's going on with him. This could be updated, so it doesn't mean he's completely ruled out, but it's not good that he's already ruled out according to ESPN. Yeah. And I think he is going to be huge. All right, moving on here. So Grizzlies at home, then the Spurs at home, then they go to Golden State to play the Warriors, Clippers, Grizzlies, Thunder. A lot of tough games here before it opens up a little bit. I know the Spurs are there, but, you know, they've been playing better as of late. It's still the Spurs, still one of the best franchises in the NBA, despite the record. How are you feeling? What are the Kings going to need to do to, like, get a track going, get back on track? You know, what is going on here?
Well, at its most basic level, they're going to have to do a lot of things that I just said. They're going to have to rebound well. They're going to have to execute their half-court offense. And they're going to have to play some defense. They've got to find a way to get a bunch of stops and secure the rebound. That's the number one thing that ails this team is bad lapses on the defensive end that tend to last for a long portion of the game, sometimes the whole game. Mm-hmm. And when you play the best teams or some of the best teams in the league, you got to play a total complete game in order to be in it to win it.
Yep, I agree. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Anything else you want to mention, Cal?
Congratulations, Doug Christie, man. Shout out Tanvir. Saw you in the chat earlier. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Make sure you join us Friday for the Royal Report in the morning, and then after the game, we'll be available for another post game. So hopefully we'll see you guys then. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And in the meantime, go Kings.